Hi guys, welcome back to Cornerstone Chats. Today it's all about loneliness.
Woohoo.
So, Ashlyn, do you want to start us off with a little bit about
Will do.
loneliness?
I think as we were kind of going through the alphabet a bit, we had some letters that were a little bit like what we're going to do, but I think L was dead set from the very beginning going to be loneliness, because I think pandemic or not, Christian or not, loneliness is such a universal topic for not only young people but like people in general. Loneliness is such a like an overwhelming feeling that it's really really hard to ignore. And one way I know that kind of like Christians can deal with it is we rely heavily on not only God but also on fellowship, which I know someone might talk about later on. But my take on it is really, when you're lonely, look at why you're lonely. Are you lonely because you have no friends? Because that's my case. But it's are you friends with the right people? Are you friends with people that have the same interests in you, same interests as you? And I think it's really, really important to like have a look at why you might be feeling lonely. Have you pulled away from God recently? Do you feel lonely from Him? Do you feel isolated from Him? Is it a personal thing? Is it a Christian thing? I think loneliness can come from like loads and loads of different places. And as like a personal story, it's over lockdown, I found it quite hard to be away from my church, be away from my college friends, be away from my boyfriend, not to be cliche. Like, I spent 16 weeks away from people that I've spent years of my life like seeing almost every day. But I'm not a silver lining person, but a lot of my friends are. And especially like my Christian friends are always like, yeah, this sucks. But and my biggest takeaway from being lonely, especially during lockdown, my silver lining was so that I managed to really, really draw close to God. It was the first time in my life for like months on end. Every day I woke up, studied my Bible, spent like a good like hour. It's the longest I've ever spent daily. And it's if you draw near to God, God will draw closer to you. That really, really helped with the feeling lonely, because feeling lonely is not just, oh, I'm alone. It can be really anxiety inducing and really like depressing, like being in the same place all the time. And it was really, I can't remember where that verse was. That's really bad. But like, that's basically just what it says. It says, if you draw near to me, I'll draw near to you.
James 4:8.
Oh, they are. Robert knows his Bible, showing me up, whatever. But it was like I don't know. I feel as though that's just like a typical thing for, see, when you feel lonely, it's a very poor me situation. Like, I've got no friends, I've got no that.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting when you were saying draw near to God is, I think a lot of people use that time of lockdown as well to answer. I know at the start of lockdown, people were asking Cornerstone us big questions about God, and I think that people were all addressing that issue. And I think when he talks about loneliness, like, you could be in a room full of loads of people, you could have loads of friends, but you can still have that feeling of loneliness.
Yeah.
So Ashley, how did you then, if you said draw near to God, like, how did you draw near to Him?
The biggest thing that I got into was worship music. I had always listened to worship music because I was always a music kind of person. I listen to music when I'm driving, when I'm cleaning, like go to bed, I'm always listening to something. I've always got like music on somewhere. And not that I got bored of our own worship, but I was listening to very much like the same songs all the time, and I was like, I wonder if I can make this like a little bit more me. And I really made it a mission to just listen to a new worship playlist every week. Like, just like someone else's, like new bands, new like artists, new styles. Like, I've found it's almost like lo-fi, but it's like really chill worship music. I made Danny listen to it when we were in the car, and it's really good. So I think a lot of it is distraction based, if that makes sense. Like, oh, I'm really lonely, okay, well, let's do something. Let's go out a walk and listen to worship music. Let's go in the car and worship. Go in the car and listen to worship music, or let me just sit down and read my Bible. Because then for like a good like 2 hours, I don't know about you, but me, I get a little bit lost in making my studies like pretty. So I was like, I can really spend like a good like 2 hours like really reading it and highlighting and taking notes and then like putting my stuff on Instagram. And I made God a huge part of a distraction from like the real world, if that makes any sense. What did you do? Because I know this is I have a family, but like Rob, you live alone. Like,
well, I think in terms of loneliness, I think it always like doesn't matter where you are, like that feeling is still there. But one thing for me was as Isaiah 41:10. I'm just checking my notes, where it says, "Do not be afraid, for I am with you." And just those 4 words, "I am with you," is to know that in any situation, God is always there. And it's restated in Matthew 28:20, where he says, "I am with you to the end of time." And I think as Christians, we really have that faith and that hope that we have someone there. And we spoke about it in last week's episode when we were talking about fellowship, how Satan really wants to shift us off to be on our own. And what a big shift it is being with coronavirus, where we have been separated and we've not been able to have that same connection with people and how lonely we could be. But I feel like we have known that God is there with us throughout it. We've not to be afraid, but we've also been proactive. And I like how you were saying, Ashley, that you're making your worship playlist, you're making your notes. And I think that's, no matter if you're a Christian or not, it's being proactive and changing that mindset rather than focusing in on that one specific feeling. We try and look for the positives. And I mean, I try and teach that in my class as well within the growth mindset, is taking your this viewpoint and putting it onto another. And I think as Christians, we do that by placing it on God, by drawing close to God, knowing that He is with us, knowing that His hand is upon our life, and know that He is moving in and out because He loves us so much and He's interacting with us.
Totally. Danny, do you have anything that you want to add?
I'm just listening to you guys. It's so interesting because I think age brings like different perspectives. So like your different age groups bring different perspectives. So like I'm listening to Ashlyn and I'm thinking, I remember when I was young and I put like a lot of responsibility on myself to engage in something in order to because I don't want to do anything wrong, am I using my time wisely? And I don't want to moan about being lonely. And so I could hear all that in you. And then I know like with Robert, like you were saying, like Robert lives by himself and whatnot, but Robert actually spends a lot of time doing all kinds of activities. Like he's good for phone calling people. He's good for checking in on other people. He's really good for kind of keeping himself connected. When he likes to be alone, he likes to be alone, but he's really good at keeping himself connected and making phone calls. Like not just with the adults in the church, but like he's really good at like staying in contact with the youth and making sure they're not lonely, And that's kind of what I was thinking about. I was thinking about how, because when I remember going through a really dark stage of loneliness, but right when I think Jen was entering nursery, like a very, very dark, like sense of loneliness. And no matter how much I tried, I couldn't seem to make friends. And there was other moms, and the moms had all grown up in shots together, and they'd all been with each other through everything. And here I was sort of like the spanner in the works, and I was sort of an outsider, and I could feel like I felt very alone. And Julie was in another village, so it wasn't like I had access to her all the time. And I just didn't have anybody to do motherhood with, and nobody in the church to do motherhood with that was local. And I remember just feeling incredibly isolated. I remember crying. Like I remember running to one nursery to drop off one, like walking over to the other nursery, dropping off the other one, crying because like no matter how much I tried to engage the other moms or talk to the other moms, they really just didn't have like the time for me. And I get it. I'm like a total foreigner, and they're like, so I did one thing that I thought was really crazy. I just was myself, and I started talking to whoever would talk to me. And I ended up meeting one of the moms that no one wanted to be friends with, which I thought was kind of interesting because like she was sort of looked down at for her whoever she was, whatever they knew about her, because you know, in tiny villages, everybody knows everything. But I don't know that stuff. So I just took her as she came, and I befriended her. And after a while, I realized I was a really nice person to her. And I think in some way, her loneliness and my loneliness kind of made us a niceness for each other. And then as time went on, there was one mom who, she was just like nice. She would always just kind of say hi to me and whatnot. And then I started saying hi to her. And then we ended up just having a really nice friendship. And it just started off with small things like, what are you doing today? Do you want to come to my house for a cup of coffee? I'll go to yours for a cup. Do you want to go meet somewhere? Do you want to go to the park? Do you want to go to Glasgow? And we did little things together, and we built this little friendship. And so those two different relationships, like one, there was another person as lonely as me, hurting, and just the kindness that we showed each other. And then there was another person who was lonely, but, you know, was more like not as sad, I would say, as I was, and she was more outgoing, and we sort of just came together, and she made life better for me, and I hope in the end I made life better for her, and we're still acquaintances to this day. But I just think like sometimes the antidote to loneliness is just loving on people.
Totally.
And finding a way outside yourself. And I know because of the pandemic, we're limited. I mean, obviously, look at us. We're doing our first Zoom chat, whatever that's about. So I think like, you know, we're all doing our best, and it's hard. It's not easy. It's hard. And I think the best thing to do is to not let each other fall through the cracks. Like, I know we think about ourselves, but how do I not let somebody else fall through the cracks? How's so-and-so getting on? I mean, little small things like delivering flowers, like the church is delivering little care packages to people. The antidote to loneliness is to reach out. And you may not get something back, but it will help a little bit, you know. So there's like the drawing near to God, worshiping him. There's the holding on to his promises that I think Robert was talking about. And then there's the coming out of yourself and trying to find a way to contact and touch without having to, you know, break whatever the rules are. So I'm just thinking, like, I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm pretty sure, if my statistics are correct, as of last year or the year before, Scotland was the first country to ever put into office a loneliness minister, which means we have a huge problem in this country with isolation and loneliness.
Yeah.
Obviously, this would be the older generation, but not limited to the older generation. So what it tells us is we're having some sort of disconnect between people. Something's happening where people are just disconnecting more and more. And I know people want to blame the internet, and they want to blame, you know what, blame yourself.
Oh, yeah.
We're disconnected because we are selfish, and it's hard to come out of our comfort zone. You know, it's so hard for us to think about other people than ourselves, our spouse, and our children.
Yeah.
And I know it's hard because
that's my child.
but it takes a lot of energy to do that. Like, it takes a lot of energy, and then you go, I have nothing left to give. But it just takes a little bit to get your kids and you together to go walk up the street, to go visit somebody and put something at the front door. Say hi to somebody through the window. Say hi to the person when you're walking your dog. Like, shots is not great for the hello business. You know, we all like to walk by each other. We also know too much about each other, and you know what I mean? So loneliness is all about coming outside of yourself, and that is a difficult thing, and it takes sometimes an act of God.
And I think that is it, Danny, because when Ashley was saying draw near to God, she was like touching that idea that God's reaching out to us. Like, he's doing that. And as Christians, we are supposed to be an image of God, and we're supposed to be an ambassador of God in this world. And
as we look in Corinthians.
If we do that, if God's reaching out to us, then we need to reach out to other people. And that's part of it. Even if you yourself are feeling lonely, like you said, if you make that connection, if you step out, then that person's going to respond to you. And that's as simple as just like sending them a wee message saying, my DMs are always open, or I'm here if you need to, or picking up a call to make it more genuine and more real for that person. I know the younger generation don't like answering their phones, even if it's in their hand, but just simply hearing someone else's voice that isn't your own thoughts.
I always leave a voice message, like on Messenger. I'm always like, I'm just going to record myself and tell them this. Because I know not everybody wants to pick up their phone, but that's part of our problem. We're the problem. We're the problem.
So like what practical steps then if we tie it all nicely in a nice little bow for the people watching this for loneliness?
Well, I think like go for it, sir.
For those who are struggling, how could we say it? Because I usually like something quick, like 1, 2, or 3. Like what can we say to them?
I would say draw near to God, like Ashlyn. Hold on to God's promises, like you said, and reach out to other people and don't think of yourself.
And if you guys are watching this and you feel lonely, you can contact us via the YouTube comments, Instagram comments, or DMs on Twitter, Facebook, or website. There's ways for you to contact us. So if you feel lonely,
yeah, because some of you guys are contacting us, and some of you are communicating with us, and you are letting us know how these are working for you, and we appreciate hearing back from you.
We want to hear about the Zoom one too, because this is completely not for you to, but it's completely new for me. This is
your whole editing process as well.
I'm okay with talking to myself while there's a phone there and other people there, but now I am actually just talking to myself now. Like that's it. Like, in my bedroom, and I am talking to myself. Like that is it. Use it on Zoom, but use it on my laptop.
Right, guys. We hope you have a good week this week. Remember, draw near to God, hold on to His promises, and reach out to others.
bye.
Bye.